Hi people. If you're wondering, yes, I am in bed. It's daytime, but I didn't get much sleep last night. And I had to get up early to let some builders in. And it's cold. There's snow outside, so yeah, this is just comfortable for now. Um, we're now in the third week of January, and I found that 2023 so far has been quite calm for me in the sense that often I get quite let's say, passionate about current affairs and things in the news. Um, and I don't know if it's deliberate or it's just the way things have gone, but I've found that so far this year, I haven't really been distracted by that. And that's a good thing because sometimes the news can be depressing and if you overthink it, it could definitely really get you down. For me, that's particularly anything to do with crime against victims or human rights are the two main areas that are likely to get me down more than anything. Um, but I've just read a story today, and I may not read out the whole report, but basically involves a Metropolitan Police officer. You may have heard about this, David Carrick, of the Metropolitan Police, which is the country's biggest police force. And it's yet another example of the problem that the Met faces. Met police officer David Carrick admits to being serial rapist. Serial rapist. Okay. Um, I'll I won't read out the whole report. It's a little bit long, but basically, a Metropolitan Police armed officer who used his role to put fear into his victims has admitted dozens of rape and sexual offences against 12 women. David Garrick, 48, who met some of his victims through dating websites, pleaded guilty to 49 offences across 2 decades. The Met has apologised after it emerged he had come to the attention of police over 9 incidents, including rape allegations between 2000 and 2021. A senior officer said his offending was unprecedented in policing. Assistant Commissioner Barbara Gray, the Met's lead for professionalism, said, "We should have spotted his pattern of abusive behaviour, and because we didn't, we missed opportunities to remove him from the organisation." Damn right. We are truly sorry that being able to continue to use this role as a police officer may have prolonged the suffering of his victims. We know they felt unable to come forward sooner because he told them they would not be believed. I hope this piece of shit is put away for decades, because it's truly disgusting. Not only is it a very serious crime, multiple crimes, but the fact that he has used his power, and he was a firearms officer, so that's kind of an elite branch within the police, to intimidate his victims. I really hope this piece of shit is put away for a long time, and I hope he has a miserable time inside. I hate people like him. I really do. I think his kind are the scum of the earth, like the lowest of the low, and I hope he has an awful time inside. I'm not I'm not saying vigilantism, but I just hope every single day he um he knows he's being punished. Um, but it's fine to say, "Oh, he's awful, it's terrible," and the Met can issue these apologies, but the problem is clearly deep. I mean, I forget his name now. Well, Wayne Couzens. Um, you know, that case again, there was this discussion about corruption at the Met, but it's clear that it isn't just a few individuals. And I don't accept, there'll be people who are very pro-police that they will say, um, oh, well, it's just a few individuals. You can't demonize all officers because of some individuals. Well, yeah, you can't demonize an entire profession. And of course, there'll be good officers. That's always a caveat. But frankly, that's a bit of a distraction. It's a bit of deflection because it doesn't matter if there is one officer who is like this. It's one too many. You could have one officer out of 1,000 who's like this. That's one too many. Um, and I don't know what the numbers are. Probably no one does. But it is clear that it is not just a few individuals. It's clear that there is a serious, serious problem in the Metropolitan Police, probably in other forces as well. Um, and I think that should be their absolute priority. They need to find these individuals, purge them, arrest them. Obviously, if there's evidence, I'm not talking about a witch hunt. Obviously, if there's solid evidence, arrest them like common criminals, and then, justice will be done. But I think I mean, crime in general is bad, but when it is done by the very people who are supposed to protect the public, there's something particularly disgusting about that. Um, and I decided to check out the Police Federation to see if they'd make any statement on this. They haven't. Their Facebook page, all the latest posts are about pay and about low morale. Well, maybe there is low morale, but the public also have low morale right now. I think increasingly people are finding it hard to trust the police. If someone's been a victim of sexual assault, how can they go to the police when the very person interviewing them might be a rapist? It's a very, very serious problem. And I'm not coming from this as a sort of anti-police perspective. My whole life I've instinctively been pro-police. Um, but we have to get rid of this idea that just because someone wears a uniform, they're beyond reproach. And I'm pleased that the Met have said that, they're not above the law. Well, damn right they're not. But I do think that a body like the Police Federation will make things difficult for reform. Suella Braverman's called for the need to purge these sort of officers, but the Police Federation, I'm not going to say that they're going to protect the likes of David Carrick, um, but by putting up this sort of thing whereby every time politicians raise concerns, or there's calls for reform, they say, oh, well, they're a police union, so they're in the business of protecting the police. Their American counterparts do the same thing. When the NYPD came under scrutiny, their police federation infamously turned their back on Mayor Bill de Blasio. I don't want to derail, it's a different force, but I do think police unions, it's in the name, they're in the business of protecting police officers. So they have to publicly acknowledge that there is a problem and promise that they're not going to stand in the way of progress, because they can't sort of expect public sympathy if they're not part of the solution for problems like this. Because, like I say, how can victims of sexual assault trust the police, especially if the perpetrator is a police officer? Um, it's absolutely disgusting. But there's one thing I'd like to close with. I'm not anti-police. In fact, I want the police to be empowered to arrest criminals. I don't want this situation where you have police prioritizing the wrong things. For example, going to people's homes because of some Twitter feud. I want them arresting hardened criminals, burglars, arsonists, teenage gang members, rapists, murderers, serious criminals. I want the police empowered to do that. Um, Come to think about it, eco extremists who've caused misery for thousands of people. Um, I want the police to be empowered, but with that empowerment comes responsibility. The point is, the police can complain about their salary. Maybe there's a case that they should make more, but regardless, they're in a position of power. Whatever the pay is, it is still a position of power. With that power, there has to be, I think they should have power. I don't want to, I would never support, for example, defund the police. I think that's a stupid idea because, in the case of the American campaign of defunding the police, what do you get if you get a situation, because it came from groups like Black Lives Matter? What if you have a situation where a black person is a victim of, say, a racist assault? If you're defunding the police, how does that person get justice? That's a stupid. It's a very stupid proposal. I don't support that. I support the opposite. I support funding the police, but there has to be police accountability. There has to be. Apologies are meaningless. They're just words. The Metropolitan Police has to act on this urgently. Has to be priority number one, actually, because of course tackling crime is priority number one, but as a basis, if the public don't trust the police, if you have a situation where corrupt officers, um, get away with what they're doing, and it's so good saying, "Oh, look, he's faced justice." Well, only because of whistleblowers, only because his victims were brave enough to report it. The police should be purging these people out in the first place. That's another thing. It shouldn't be down to whistleblowers who no doubt face pressure from their colleagues or victims who face pressure from the police and threats. Police chiefs across the country should make this a priority. They should be looking at their ranks. If there's question marks over anyone, that needs to be investigated. I'm not talking about a witch hunt. I'm not talking about punishing people without evidence. I'm saying that there is clearly a problem. Um, I mean, once upon a time, the police was a respected profession. And I think for most people, I think the average British citizen generally respects the police, broadly speaking. But I do think the police are at risk of losing that respect if they don't seriously clean their ranks. And they can't complain. They really can't, because this is happening too much. I don't think Wayne Couzens and David Carrick are by any means isolated cases. Um, they may be particularly egregious cases, but even, lesser offences, anything, I basically think if a police officer commits a crime, he or she shouldn't be allowed to wear a uniform. Why? Because they're meant to be setting an example. If the very people who are meant to uphold the law are breaking the law, what does that say? It's rotten. And I wonder, how do they sleep at night? They must have no conscience. How can they put on a uniform whilst they know that they're committing crimes? And yeah, it might be a minority. And if you happen to be a police officer and you're watching this and you're thinking, uh, you know, I've done these heroic things, I'm not corrupt. Yeah, but that old expression, it takes good men to say nothing for the world to be, I forget verbatim, but I call on all decent police officers to admit there's a problem and not stand in the way. I call on the Police Federation, don't stand in the way. I get that you're a police union, lobby for pay issues, that's fine. But, I frankly don't trust them because I think police unions have a record of doing this. They'll say, oh, the politicians are vilifying us. No, there's empirical evidence that there's a problem. And they shouldn't stand in the way and say that, for example, if senior um, commissioners want to take action, that's somehow buying the media pressure or something. Because that's probably what they'll say. No, they have to just step aside, recognize there's a problem, and be part of the solution. I think the Police Federation should make some sort of statement condemning this. They haven't, at least not on their Facebook page. And I get it's not they're a union, they're going to lobby for pay and so on. Fine, that's their job, but they should accept that there is a problem. I mean, I actually posted it on their Facebook page because I feel very strongly about this. Now, if they respond by deleting that or sort of reprimanding me, that will show what their thinking is. Right, I'll leave it here because I'll just repeat myself, but I'll put a link to the story. Um, it's disgusting, and it does shame the Met. They seriously, seriously need to clean themselves up.